Kindly take your supplementary textbooks and alien hand. Open the book to lesson number 4, The Cop and the Anthem. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where what happened was the opposite of what you expected? Such a situation is known as an irony. Such ironies are usually embarrassing. Embarrassing means something that you feel ashamed about. The story that you are going to read now has got several such situations. Let us now begin with the lesson. Soapy is a homeless, jobless man. Homeless means one who doesn't have a home and doesn't have a job. Winter is fast approaching and Soapy must have a place to stay. Soapy is a man who doesn't have a home. He lives in a park. But now, since winter is approaching, it won't be possible for him to live in the park. So he has to find a place to protect himself from the winter. Soapy comes to a decision at last. Soapy moved restlessly on his seat in Madison Square. There are certain signs to show that winter is coming. Birds begin to fly south. People want new warm clothes. And Soapy moves restlessly on his seat in the park. When you see these signs, you know winter is near. A dead leaf falls at Soapy's feet. That was a special sign for him that winter was coming. It was time for all those who lived in Madison Square to begin preparing. Soapy's mind now realized the fact. What was the fact? The fact was that he had to prepare himself for the winter. The time had come. He had to find some way to take care of himself during the winter. And therefore he moved restlessly on his seat. Restlessly means very confused or not knowing what to do. Soapy's hopes for the winter were not very high. Hopes were not very high means he wasn't thinking anything great would happen during the winter. He was not thinking of sailing on a ship. Neither was he thinking of the southern skies or of the Bay of Naples. 3 months in the prison on Backwell's Island was what he wanted. That means he wanted to stay in the prison for 3 months to protect himself from the winter because Soapy had no home and he used to live in a park. 3 months of food every day and a bed to sleep. 3 months safe from the cold north winds and safe from cops. A cop is a policeman. This is what Soapy wanted most in the world. For years, Blackwell's Island had been his home during the winter. Richer New Yorkers made their plans to go to Florida or to the shore of the Mediterranean Sea. Soapy made his small plans for going to the island. You know which island he wanted to go to. He wanted to go to the island where the prison was so that he could spend his winter peacefully. And now the time had come. 3 big newspapers, some under his coat and some over his legs, had not kept him warm at night in the park. So, see, he used to cover himself with newspaper, but the newspaper would not help him to protect himself from the winter. So, Soapy was thinking of the island. There were places in the city where he could go and ask for food and a bed. These would be given to him. He could move from one building to another and he would be taken care of through the winter. But he liked Blackwell's Island better than any other place. You all know that Blackwell Island is the name of a prison. Soapy's spirit was proud. If he went to any of these places, there were certain things he had to do. In one way or the other, he would have to pay for what they gave him. So he very well knew that he would have to do some work or the other. He was a proud type of a man who didn't want to do any kind of ordinary jobs. He preferred in the prison. If he lived in the city, the people would give him food and a bed to sleep. But they would ask him to do certain things. They would not ask him for money, but they would ask him to wash his whole body and they would make him answer certain questions. They would want to know everything about his life. So he felt that prison was better than that. The prison had rules which he had to follow. But in prison, a gentleman's life was a life which was still his own life. A gentleman's own life was his own life. Soapy, having decided to go to the island, at once began to move towards his desire. That means he decided to do what he wished, and his wish was to go to the prison. Now, in order to go to the prison, he has to do something wrong. So, all the time he tries to be on the wrong side of law. He tries 3 tricks, but all in vain. All in vain means they all go wasted. The fear that no cop will ever catch him makes him feel sick at heart. There were many easy ways to doing this. The most pleasant way was to go and have a good dinner at some fine restaurant. So he thought that the only way he could go to prison could be by going to a restaurant, having a good dinner there, and not paying for the dinner. And if he was asked, he would say that he has got no money to pay. And then a cop would be called. A cop, you know, is a policeman. It would all be done very quietly. The cop would arrest him. He would be taken to a judge. The judge would do the rest. Soapy left his seat and walked out of Madison Square to the place where the great street called Broadway and Fifth Avenue meet. So Soapy left the place where he used to spend most of his time, that is the Madison Square, and went to another place known as Broadway and Fifth Avenue Street. When he reached to this place, he went across this wide space and started north on Broadway. That means he started walking northwards of Broadway. There he stopped at a brightly lighted restaurant. This was the place where the best food and the best people appeared. Soapy believed that above his legs he looked all right. His face was clean. His clothes were good enough. If he had to get to a table, that means if he had to get one table at the restaurant, he believed that success would be his. That means he would have been successful. The part of him which would be seen above the table, that means his coat, looked quite good. The waiter would bring whatever he asked for. He began thinking of what he would like to eat. In his mind, he could see the whole dinner. Dinner is the food that we have at night. The afternoon meal is known as lunch, and the morning meal is known as breakfast. The cost would not be too high. He did not want the restaurant people to feel any anger. He knew what he was going to do, so he wanted to order for something that was not very expensive so that he would not arouse any anger among the restaurant people. But the dinner would leave him filled and happy for the journey to his winter home. Now, his winter home that he was thinking about was the Blackwell Island. But as Soapy put his foot inside the restaurant, the head waiter saw his broken old shoes and the torn clothes that covered his legs. Strong and ready hands turned Soapy round and moved him quietly and quickly outside again. Soapy turned off Broadway. That means he gave up. It seemed that this most easy way to the island was not to be his. That means he realized that the people at the restaurant are not going to allow him to sit in the restaurant. He must think of some other way of getting there. There means to the prison. At the corner of 6th Avenue was a shop with a wide glass window, bright with electric lights. Soapy picked up a big stone and threw it on the glass of that window. People came running around the corner. A cop was the first among them. A cop means a policeman. Soapy stood still. Stood still means he didn't move and smiled when he saw the cop. "Where's the man that did that?" asked the cop. "Don't you think that I must have done it?" asked Soapy. He was friendly and happy. What he wanted was coming towards him. You all know that he wanted to go to the prison, and that was what was going to happen, he thought. But the cop's mind would not consider Soapy. Men who break windows do not stop there to talk to cops. They run away as fast as they can. The cop saw a man further along the street, running. He ran after him, and Soapy, sick at heart, walked slowly away. He had failed 2 times.